Every new media represents a change for men and society, as Plato used to say in the story of antique Egypt. I'm quoting. When Theuth said to Thamos, "Writing will make the Egyptians wiser and will improve their memories, for it is an elixir of memory and wisdom that I have discovered." But Thamos replied, "Most ingenious Theuth, one man has the ability to beget arts, but the ability to judge of their usefulness or harmfulness to their users belongs to another. And now you, who are the father of letters, have been led by your affection to ascribe to them a power the opposite of that which they really possess. Your pupils will trust in writing, produced by external characters which are no part of themselves, will discourage the use of their own memory. You offer your pupils the appearance of wisdom, not true wisdom, for they will read many things without instruction and will therefore seem to know many things when they are, for the most part, ignorant and hard to get along with, since they are not wise but only appear wise." End of quote. Language is a medium for excellence. Through it, we can share our thoughts and emotions. Marshall McLuhan referred to it as an extension of our thoughts. For that reason, it has evolved and turned into many forms, such as writing or coding, or even through images like memes or memojis. In some way, language is our map of reality, but it is not the reality itself, although sometimes we believe it is. In this paper, I want to show the importance of the written language through social networks in today's world, mainly through trends like the #MeToo movement and how people believe more in written language than to a person. In 2006, the Me Too movement was founded to help survivors of sexual violence, particularly women, girls, even men, and other minorities from low-wealth communities placed in a weak position before their predators. Its purpose was to find pathways to healing. From the beginning, their vision was to address both the lack of resources for survivors of sexual violence and to build a community of advocates driven by survivors at the forefront of a no more movement to interrupt sexual violence in their communities. For this reason, social networks have let people express their fears, problems, joys, and more especially through the hashtag or trends. So we can find news, comments related to subjects we are interested in, like hashtag general semantics, hashtag media ecology, hashtag Lance Strait, etc. As we can see, we can find interesting information through these trends. But unfortunately, some of these news, comments, even feelings could be slanderous. So we have to be objective and critical with every post we see, because fake news could bring us false judgments and actions. One of the examples of the power of these trends, specifically from the Me Too movement, was one that happened in Mexico City this year on Twitter. With the hashtag #MeToo Mexican musicians, an anonymous message accused the Mexican rock star Armando Vega, well known as a producer, artist, and founder of a lot of famous musical groups such as Botellita de Jerez, to have befriended a girl when he was 50 and she was 13. She did not accuse the musician of physical abuse, but claimed he made unwanted verbal advances, including telling her he wanted to teach her how to kiss. Hours after of this accusation, Vega Hill responded through his Twitter account the following message. I'm quoting. I have been falsely and anonymously accused of abusing and harassing a woman when she was 13 years old. I will say this categorically. This accusation is false. Let me make it clear that my death is not a confession of guilt. On the contrary, it is a radical declaration of my innocence. I want to clear the path my son will walk in the future. End of quote. 5 hours later, the Mexican 64-year-old rock star was found dead at his home in Mexico City. This example will help me to explain the relationship between people and the written language in the emerging media. Through the development of written language, we have seen several advantages out of it. Firstly, it was a new tool to help us remember. At the beginning of this paper, we have listened to the myth of Theud and his answer about it. Secondly, we have embodied it because we think that the written words are the person himself. We forget that it is only the content. In fact, we tend to believe the written language more than a person. How many times we question that a person says, but when we see the same content written in a book or even in internet, we feel like we have the truth. Socrates used to say about this, I'm quoting, writing is very like painting. For the creatures of painting stand like living beings. But if one asks them a question, they preserve a solemn silence. And so it is with written words. You might think they spoke as if they had intelligence, but if you question them, wishing to know about their sayings, they always say one and the same thing. End of quote. We have forgotten the reality. The written language is orphaned from the author. As Barnes states, the born of the reader is the death from the author. Many of the words written today in social networks are from anonymous people or bots. When we speak to someone, we identify the oral language with the person because we can see the people talking, but we cannot identify the person behind written words. Thereby, Aristotle pointed out in his own interpretation that the spoken words are symbols of affections in the soul, and written words are symbols of spoken ones. So, the spoken language offers a greater proximity to real beings. It is the form or the idea out of the reality directly. Instead, the spoken language is a bastard form of logos, as Aristotle pointed out. We see this phenomena happening today in social networks. We read and see what we want to see. It is not a secret the capacity of this technology to follow our trail and measure what we constantly do. Through this data, they send us information back adequately to our needs. We are in a generalized surveillance and in a subtle and constant manipulation. The worst of all is that we know it and we do not care. Today, all the content we see is customized. Algorithms configure the social networks to show us content we are interested in through the big data we give them. But they do not understand us as human beings. We see, listen, and think, then algorithms show what we need to see or listen to. We must emphasize what we see is not always the truth, even though we believe it is by the way they present it as credible. We are feeding our brain with false knowledge through which we make decisions. If we come back to the Vega Hill case, we can see that many people choose different alternatives to take actions. The girl who wrote the message chose to make her feelings public and accused the musician. On the other hand, and due to the past experience in Mexico with this kind of messages, Vega Hill chose to commit suicide. We can see then how important decisions are made from the information we have on social networks, such as voting for one candidate and not another, or committing suicide. But we don't know if the information is true or not. Even Vega Hill's accusation. The message was anonymous, and he claimed to be innocent. But even so, he chose not to live and leave his son orphaned. Some questions arise. Was it really a woman who posted the tweet? Are social networks helping others to be better? How much influence do our social networks have in our actions, feelings, or thoughts? I want to clarify, I do not judge any action, but analyze the importance these tools have for us. The media makes our map of reality. We think and act in accordance with the information they give to us. And this map is also customized. Everyday platforms are fed with all the content we provide. What we read on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram could be an altered speech far away from the truth, because the aim of the users who post or upload the information is not the message, not the truth, but the effect and influence on society. This goal is easily achievable with more followers who retweet or like what we write. About this, the New York Times reports that in the beginning of 2018, the price of fake people on Twitter was $225 for the first 25,000 fake followers. These accounts could be real and fake people. Most of them are bots. So the false and massive activities in social networks influence real people. Such activities create an alternate social reality. The hashtag #MeToo have been used more than 19 million times on Twitter. Personal stories and prominent celebrities have been key topics in hashtag #MeToo tweets. A majority of hashtag #MeToo tweets in high volume periods have been in English, but the movement has sparked social media interest across the globe. And the analysis shows that 29% of the hashtag #MeToo tweets during these periods were written in other languages. The movement has had a lot of influence in the world, with important consequences as taking a life. In Mexico, there have been several musicians accused through this movement. They have been dismissed from their music groups, have lost their jobs, lost their families. In this game of words, the social networks have the power today. They are affecting the way people live, act, and think. What used to be private now becomes public. Social networks are now part of people's lives because only through them they can be listened, they can be supported. However, we need to be careful about what we do, write, or listen, because the reality is not always as social networks show, and we can be mistaken, be accused, and lose honor, our life, and most importantly, our humanity. Thank you very much.